To determine how many samples you're going to put on your sampler, you're going to need to do a little math. And I know that's not a strong point for some of us who are very creative, but we do the best we can. So you may have seen in the sampler video that I put out that there are modern samplers that don't have any space in between the little blocks of samples. And then there are some that have a very regimented amount of space. And then others just kind of run everything all together, and then others are doing lines all the way across. So how you do yours is really up to you. What I've decided to do with this sample is to have it more in blocks with a space in between them. So I decided to go with 2-inch squares, and what I've done is to determine that the smallest width of my piece is 10 inches and the smallest height is 13.5. So I'm going to trim off the edges in just a little bit to make it that 10 by 13.5. But before I do that, I want to just completely make sure that I'm going to be able to fit my squares of embroidery samples within it. So if I've got 10 inches across, I determined by looking at it kind of mathematically, if I've got 4 2-inch blocks, that I could get a 3/8 inch allowance on the side and in between each of them. And that would give me slight 1/8 of an inch extra that I'll just trim off the extra side. And then when looking at 13.5 down, I decided I could do 5 blocks down with 1 inch at the top and 1 inch at the bottom, and then 3/8 inch in between each of them. So another way to try figuring it out, if it's more comfortable for you, is to use graph paper and to actually draw it out. So I'm going to work on that a little bit, and I'll be right back with you. So now I have my graph paper all marked, and I can check and make sure that I also cut it down to the size, finished sized, and it fits fine on the felt. And so I can go ahead and cut the felt to the proper size. For those of you who don't have a quilting background, this is a rotary cutting ruler and rotary cutter, and we just lay it on the mat, on the felt, and can quickly and easily make a very nice clean cut. And you always want to cut away from yourself, holding the ruler tightly down. And try not to get your pattern at the same time, but easier said than done sometimes. And the final cut. Okay, now it's at the right size, and I need to mark it for where I'm going to be having my little squares. Now, again, at Joann's, you can get this 1/4 inch tape, which is really handy for making markings like this without actually leaving anything on your fabric. The other option is there are different types of markers, like this is a water erasable marker. And so I can mark with this and it will wash out in the water. Now, that said, you definitely want to check that on your fabric, because I haven't tried it out on the felt and I'm not sure whether it will wash out completely or whether it could leave some residue. So right now I'm just going to be using my little tape to keep my measurements. And so I know that I want to have this at 3/8 inch. So I have to, what I'm doing is I'm putting my fabric on the mat, and here's 1/2 inch, and so then I put the ruler in at 1/8 inch above that, and that's where the line is going to go. So I'm double checking my measurements. We've got 3/8 inch here and 1 inch there, and we want to be 2 inches over from the 3/8 inch mark. Again, it's really up to you how you want to do this and whether you want to have it be real exact. It's very much a personal choice. I want to do this a little more exact because I know that some of you like that in your pieces, so I want to give you some ideas on how you can get it that way. So now the inside area should be 2 inches. It's just a little bit over. Okay, and then again I'm going to have we have just 1/8 of an inch extra because it's only 3/8 of an inch between them, so I've got to just lay this piece just 1/8 of an inch away from, or overlapping with this other one. So I'm just going to go ahead and lay it right on top, halfway across that, to make it 3/8 of an inch total. And then another 2 inches. Now we have some nice blocks of color all marked off, and I can go ahead and do a little running stitch around the edge, and then I'll remove the tape. Now that I've marked my felt sampler with masking tape, I'm going to be able to just do a quick basting stitch to make sure that the squares are very easy to see, but they won't leave any permanent markings. I'm just using a very cheap very old. This is a cotton thread, that machine thread that I've probably had for 30 some years, and whatever you want to use to throw away. I do like to use a high contrast color so you can see it easily when you want to take it out. And I'm just going to do a running stitch right alongside the tape. And I do a much longer size thread on this because it is something that is going to be just taken out, and makes it a lot less hassle to have to take it on and off. And so I just go ahead and run it all the way up, and I just kind of go right underneath that 3/8 inch border there. Tape does get a little sticky sometimes. I'm just gonna go ahead and keep on working on this. I'll go up one and go across and go down another until we have our squares all marked off. Right now, I can just go ahead and remove the tape from all the other areas. And now our piece is all marked and ready to be stitched.